Great. So this is the new European regulations on wine labeling. I just want to say that there's a Q&A button below. If you have any questions, please enter the questions in that, and I'll answer them at the end. Hopefully there will be some good questions. There always are. So there is a Q&A button below. You can click on that, type in your question, and I'll get to it at the end. Again, my name's David Lees. Thank you for joining this webinar on the European regulations on wine labeling. And I will take you through what is Bottle Books. As you can see, I'm from Bottle Books. Many of you know Bottle Books because you've used us with California, Oregon, Washington, Pro Wine around the world with your partners. How do you comply with the new European regulation? I'll take you through a demo of the Bottle Books e-label, show you how to print the label, even with the QR code. Tell you what this means for your online shop if you're selling in Europe, or if you're selling in online shops, what they might be asking you for, the pricing, how much our software costs, and how to get started. So Bottle Books has been in wine data management since 2013. Not that long for a winery, but for software, it's quite a long time. We are specialized in the wine business. Our forte is to help companies in the wine business, from producers to importers to retailers, centrally manage their product data and be able to share it across the world, in fact, to the tune of 3.5 million times. So wineries are really using Bottle Books today to import and store their information. So you can import from an Excel, you can store it in the portfolio, you can share that information with partners around the world. They'll request it, or you can send it to them. And you can even export that into an Excel again. And of course, with e-labels, you can meet regulations across the world. But starting in the European Union, as many of you might have heard, the US is sort of taking steps to perhaps have very similar regulation in the future. So the new legal requirements, we've worked, I started this project a year ago with a few of my colleagues, and we interviewed a lot of the top producers in the world, and we sought legal advice from experts, from lawyers, from associations around Europe and even across the world. We've all put that into our product to try to guide you to make the best labels. Now, this is not legal advice, so please seek your own legal advice, and this is based upon our interpretations of the regulation, all of this advice we're having, and it's subject to change. What does this regulation say? It says that you need to, just like cereal and other items in the grocery store, you need to put the ingredients and the nutritional information with your wine. And you can do so, though, with an e-label. Though, when does this apply? Well, this is a big question that's happening now. In fact, we just heard this week that there's a bit of an update. So the legislation says that the wines produced on and after December 8th of 2023 for sale in the European Union need to comply with this legislation. So what does that mean? Well, it certainly means anything with the 2024 vintage or beyond needs to comply. What does that mean for the 2023 vintage? For 2023 to be considered produced, a wine must reach the properties required for the product in accordance with the EU market regulation. This includes the alcohol, the acidity, and in case of sparkling, the pressure. So for sparkling wine, this, that is produced through a second fermentation, this fermentation must be completed. So that gives you an idea of what they're going to constitute as produced. For some of you, you're going to have wines on that border. We already have clients who are, even if it's going to be a year before they need to include this information on their labels, they are already taking a package. We have a discount code that goes on forever. So, and that discount code is right now generous at 35%. It's going to get less over time, specifically when the legislation comes in. And so a lot are just starting early if they're going to make a mistake, they want to try it on a few wines first to get going, because this is a new process that not everybody's used to going through. So what's required? What do you need to do? The wine needs to be clearly identified, so you should know what bottle you're scanning. There is one expert in the EU, and I'll let you know if there's any disagreements or any sort of other thoughts. There is an expert who did come out and say that it doesn't matter. It can be, as long as the ingredients and the nutritional table are correct, it doesn't matter. You can identify the label. Although the GS1, which is the barcode standard in essentially creating the barcode standard in Europe, they are trying to move in 2027 to the ability for QR codes to be scanned at the grocery aisle, so that you don't need to have barcodes anymore. And in that standard, it's really the best practice is one e-label per vintage and one per size. And also the e-label needs to be translated in all the markets it's sold. So in the European Union, that's a lot of languages. Luckily, in bottle books, we use the proper ingredients that's mandated in the EU legislation, and we provide the proper translations, the European translations for that, not automatic translations, but proper translations, so that your translations can comply. What is forbidden? You're not allowed to track. So you can't have Google Analytics. You can't even have things like Google Fonts, which is a bit of a side angle, but you have to be very careful with that. And you cannot market, you cannot sell or market the wine. This is part of an anti-cancer initiative. So it's a little bit of a balance between, they don't want you to promote, although of course that's your job as a winery, to promote your products, to promote drinking, let's say. So you can't have a buy now button or anything like that. So most experts are not recommending producers use their own website. It is technically possible, but it might be, in fact, cheaper to use a third party, whether it's us or somebody else. Of course, you can also, I just want to mention, you can also print. So you can print the ingredients list and the nutritional table on your label that's fully compliant. You just need to, have that space. And so over time, but if you're in a pinch, you can do that. You could do that with a first vintage if you needed to. It is possible. So we covered a lot of that, and now I'll get into the demo. So I'll show you about bottle books, how to create an e-label, and if any of you have not been into bottle books, I'll give you a little bit of tour what bottle books is like. So here we are at the requests and events. Many of you maybe you're going to the Global Buyers in California. Maybe you went to ProWine, and you might have gotten an email that then takes you to a request or event. You've clicked on it and you've gone through a wizard process where you've completed information for your partner. So whether it's the profile information or the product information, you've gone through and entered that, and then they've received that information. And so this is where the exchange of information really happens in bottle books. Now, when you've done that, all of your information is saved. So you can reuse it again for another event or another partner, but it also gets stored in the portfolio. And there are producers who are paying us for the portfolio. You can do sort of some things for free, but you can go in here and see the information you've entered. You can download the images. You can create technical sheets automatically, and you can group them and send them in a Dropbox like link to other people around the world, or perhaps somebody you just had a sales meeting with, and show them your new white wines for 2023. So all of these things are possible in the portfolio. All these products work independently of each other, but I just want to show you, because when I get into e-labels, you'll see that all this information can be reused, and that's really the power of bottle books. So if you go to the top here, if you have an account, you can log in and click on the top. I'm going to send you the link to go straight to the e-labels. And if you don't have an account, don't worry. You can follow the link, create a free account, just need a name and password, and you can go in and create 3 free e-labels. So you can go in, create 3 free e-labels, and you'll be able to get going, try it out. Doesn't cost you anything. You can see what it's about and see if that works for you. So why don't we click add an e-label? And you can now name your e-label. So I'm going to just say Chardonnay. Can't spell Chardonnay today, but it's okay. And 2024, let's say. And then you can put, let's say, your own internal code. This is just so you know which label it is. This information won't show up on the final label. And immediately, you'll be able to get a QR code. When talking to producers, we heard too many horror stories of producers printing test labels, test QR codes, and all of that. So you can download this. You can send this to the printers, and this will work. Right now, it will only create it will only bring the person who scans it to this page, which just has the name that you've entered, so you know which one it is. But you will be able to then go later if you want to create that e-label. Or you can also set a redirect. So at any time, whether it's a month from now or 5 years from now, you can redirect off of Bottle Books and go to another system. You can go to your own website, whatever you think works best for you. So we were confident in our solution. But we're here today, so why don't we go create an e-label? We can select the product type. So select wine. Countries, why don't we just select them all? Right now, this is just for translation, so that the product will get translated into all of these languages. Eventually, we will have options for the US, for whatever, Canada, Australia, whatever other regions are asking for e-labels or allowing e-labels. So we're going to select, continue. Now you have 3 options. Starting from the bottom, you can just start entering the data. Moving up, you can copy from a previous vintage. So that would be great. You can, or perhaps it's a very similar wine, you could just copy. Or you can copy from the Bottle Books portfolio, which is any wine that you've already entered will be in the portfolio, and you can get a great head start. So let's try that. We'll pick, don't really have a Chardonnay, but we'll pick a Riesling. And you can see here, a name already comes in, a vintage. We already have a bottle image, and we have some basic information that we've entered. Now, this information is optional. So some of the things like the Riesling, the wine, the grape type, you don't need to enter that. But you need to just have a basic, if you have the name and the vintage, you can enter that. So you see how the vintage is doubled up, so I can make a correction there and display it properly. So you get a preview right away. You can see what you're building, and you allowed to, most people, including the lobbying body, think you're allowed to put your logo and the name of your winery and a link to your main site, not your buy now button, but your main site. There are some experts who are now warning against this, but not a lot. So we're going to keep an eye on this and let you know if anything changes. But right now, we think that there's a kind of disagreement about this, and that you can link to your main site. And then we get into the ingredients. So ingredients. These are all in the EU legislation. You can select the ingredients. You need to put the ingredients by weight, and they need to be in order. But the last 2% can be in any order. So once you pick all the ingredients, you add them, and you can drag and drop to put them in any order you'd like. So let's put grapes here up at the top. And then we will format the ingredients list according to the regulation. So for instance, we'll highlight milk and we'll add statements like the antioxidants and put ascorbic acid in there. So we'll do that properly for you. And then you don't have to worry. If you want to add ingredients that are not on the list, it's not a problem. You're able to do that. at custom ingredient below here. You just need to then translate it. This is the official EU list. According to agreements with the US, I know you are allowed to add ingredients that are allowed in the US. So there is some kind of there is some wiggle room for those producers outside of Europe. But if you want to be safe, we have the list, and you can always just follow the European regulations. Packing gases, you're allowed to state if it's bottled in a protective atmosphere, or it may happen in a protective atmosphere. This is for gases, that are above the wine and below the cork. And now we get to the nutritional table. For most wines, for any sort of standard wine, these most wines, the vast majority of wines, with the alcohol, the residual sugar, and the total acidity, the tartaric acid, you should be able to calculate and build the whole nutritional table. How? So you can, and of course, you can enter all of this data manually. You can do lab reports on all of it. Some of you might have that. But if you don't, you should be able to build that as long as it's a typical wine. So firstly, we have a calculator that will calculate the kilojoules and the calories. And there is a European standard calculator that we use for this to get proper amounts. Now, there is a wiggle room in this, plus minus 20%, for instance, for calories. So there is some tolerance built into the legislation. And once you have that, then you can go down to the rest of the table, and you can fill out, in most cases, for most wines, 0 for fat, 0 for saturates, 0 for protein, and 0 for salt. And that is because the amount of salt, protein, saturates, and fat that will be in wine is so negligible that you can put 0. So that's going to be, again, in most cases. The other thing we will do is if you've completed that above, that we will do a carbohydrates and a sugar calculation based upon the calories. If you are putting a lot of sugar in the wine, or if you're influencing that a lot, this might be, you might want to, that's something you might want to check, but is the balance between carbohydrates and sugars. Sometimes that can be slightly off, but more or less that will be the same and be able to be calculated. Now, as I was mentioning, volume of the portion, typically it's going to be 100, but it can be, you can put something else, and we'll split the table and make 2 portions. Certifications. These are optional. You can grab the certifications. If you have certifications, you can display their logos, and then we will display them. If you have a sustainability message, you can enter that, but then we just need to translate it. Package and recycling. You can add a recycling certificates or green dot, things that you are required to put on the label, to print on the label. Unfortunately, you can't take anything off of the label and put it in the e-label. It's just some of this new stuff, namely the nutritional and ingredients, you can do so. If any of you are selling in Italy, you might also know that as of the start of this year, you need to tell the consumer in Italy how to dispose of your product. So what the materials are that you have in your product that you need to dispose of. So if we put the container type as a bottle, and you can do so with bottle books, and you can do so with a QR code. So if we say take a clear bottle, and we go clear glass, and we maybe pick a closure of cork, we will let the consumer know that they can dispose of this product in a certain way. And you can go all the way to gift boxes and so forth. Responsible consumption logos, again, these still need to be on the bottle, but you can reinforce them here, including food business operator. So you can declare your importer, and you can do it by country, and we'll show it accordingly. You can add the footer. So you just put in the QR code. and press enter, and then you can get a you can get a barcode. We'll create a barcode at the bottom. You don't have to put this, but this is just a nice optional thing. When you're done, you can publish, and you're gonna publish anyway. This is a compliance product, so you can have as many logins as you'd like, and each login, it'll be recorded who did this publishing, or who saved a draft, and at what time. You can also then add a note. We encourage you to add a note, so you can just say test product. I can spell product correctly and publish. Great, and then you're published. You have the QR code, and you can download it again, and you can, and then when a consumer scans that, they will see what you've created, they will see your e-label, and you'll be ready to go. Okay, back to the presentation. Thank you for joining again. If you have questions, you could see this Q&A button. Just keep putting questions in there at the end. I'll just go through all of them and answer them all for you, as I mentioned before. But if you've just joined, thank you for joining. My name's David again from Bottle Books, and we'll take you through the rest of this. So we talked about ingredients, entering the ingredients, and we talked about completing the nutritional table, and some of the standards that also is in help text in our product. We have a master guide that I will send you, or have sent you a link to, including the discount code, which you'll also get, and the link to start. Okay, printing your label. So as I mentioned before, you still need to print the same stuff that you have been printing. So the contains sulfites in milk. Unfortunately, the allergens still need to be on the back label. Produced and bottled by or imported by. Anything that you were printing on the back label still needs to be there from a regulatory question. Now, this can be done on a strip label. I know some producers from outside of the EU will put a strip label on, and you can add it on that strip label. It just needs to all be in the same field of view. So you can't put it on the bottom of the bottle or something like that. It needs to be in the back label in the field of view. What you do need to add is you need to add a declaration of the energy. So this is the short version of it, the shortest version we think. 100 milliliters colon E stands for energy equals kilojoules / kcal. So that needs to be on the back label. And then the second thing needs to be the QR code. The QR code, there is it doesn't mention anything in the legislation. It just says that you can do so through a QR code. Some experts are recommending that you put some text, ingredients, nutritional values, or nutritional info, or scan for more info. We also have the option in Bottle Books to put an eye in the middle of the QR code. That can also work and help identify that it needs to be scanned. That's really up to you, to how you want to do that. But there are some rules around the QR code. First of all, these are sort of guidelines. So please, the most important thing is you test your QR code. This is a new process, and it doesn't always work. New things don't always work. And because it's compliance, it's very important to get it right. So we recommend at least 1.25 centimeters squared, that there is a margin around the QR code that's at least two of these kind of pixels, these like little pixels, 2 of these pixels wide. And that means that you're not printing on like a squiggly line or a different color or whatever. So you see here, there's a kind of border. It should be a high contrast. If it's not black and white, it's going to be, okay, so if it's black and cream, let's say, like the half of this slide, that's also pretty good. But if the colors are very close, it's going to get harder and harder to scan. And then the QR code will need to be bigger, or maybe it won't work. We use really short URLs because the QR code is a visual representation of the URL that you put into your browser. Because we use really short URLs, the QR code is simplified and can be printed smaller. So this is our recommendation for you. Some questions. I know we're going to get to more questions, but these kind of come up at this time. How long does the e-label need to be retrievable? It needs to be retrievable as long as the wine is on sale in the EU. Can it be changed anytime, the data? Yes, you can go in anytime. You can update. You can add information. And if you want to move away from bottle books, you can simply redirect, as I mentioned before. So we're one of the few services that you're not completely locked in. Outside of Europe, if you are outside of Europe, for instance, in the US, and somebody scans your QR code outside of the US, right now, it might not be legal, meaning that your QR, the information in your ingredients and nutritional table could be accurate for Europe, but not accurate for the US. So you do not have to do this in the US, but if you do it, you have to do it right. And so we add a warning at the top that warns people only when they're outside of Europe that the information might not be correct, but they can still see the information. So when you're creating the code, you can still see that the code is being created, or that everything is being created. But yeah, and we look to add more functionality here in the future, a more complex set of rules. So we'll let you know about that. For instance, if you're in this country, maybe it goes to the website, or it goes to that website, or it goes here. So we will be adding that as a feature set coming in the next a bit. But it's definitely on the. I don't know when, but it will come at some point. Your online shop. Now, many of you probably don't have their own online shop in Europe, but you will be selling on other online shops, and you need to provide this information to the online shop. They might be asking you about it. There is whenever you buy the product, the consumer needs to be able to see this information. They need to see the ingredients and the nutritional table. So in this case, this has been, added to a product page, and before the consumer can put it in their basket or before they buy it, they need to see that information. And you can copy that from bottle books. So once you've entered and created your e-labels, you can copy that to your clipboard, and then that'll be easily pastable into any website, including your own. A lot of producers are choosing bottle books, and they're choosing us because they know us, because we're really a leader in this field, and have been so for 10 years. We have expert guidance. We were one of the first to build this product, and of course, we're integrated into the fabric of the wine business. Pricing. So you only pay for what you need. How many e-labels you create a year. So as long as you maintain some subscription on bottle books, we will maintain all of your old e-labels. Again, you can redirect those e-labels if you'd like, but if you want them to be maintained, then we will do so. It doesn't cost anything extra. So if you produce, let's say you need 32 e-labels per year, then you won't pay more than 300 euros. Now, we have a discount code until December 8th, and I will send that to you, and you will get 35% off forever as long as you maintain that subscription. So you will get it this year, and you will get it next year. So there's still a lot of savings that can be had. Great. All you need to do is start today. If you're interested, I would recommend, even if you're not, just to try it, get in there. It's free. You don't need a credit card, no commitment. Again, I'll send you this link 24 hours from now, and you'll have it if you don't already have it. Thank you. And now I'll get to your questions.